proceed.
Thank you. Is it okay if I call you Rachel?
Yeah.
Okay, Rachel, would you just please state your name for the jury, introduce yourself?
I am Rachel.
Okay, and Rachel, do you live in the state of Arizona?
Yeah.
All right, and what do you do for a living?
Right now I'm a stay-at-home mom.
All right, and you have 2 children?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, young children?
Yes.
All right. Now, did there come a point in time during the year 2009 that you were pregnant?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and
let me just interrupt you for a second. One thing that's important about testifying is that instead of saying uh-huh or just nodding your head, you have to actually say yes or no, because our court reporter is taking down everything that we're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you speak up and you give an audible answer, yes or no, just not uh-huh. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Go ahead, Ms. Reed.
thank you. Was there a point in time in the year 2009 that you were pregnant?
Yes.
Okay. And had you made the decision to give that child up for adoption?
Not at first, but later on, yes.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, when I first became pregnant, I panicked and I called an adoption agency, and then I decided that I could do it. I could take care of my child, so I wasn't going to go through an adoption agency. And then as I got closer to my 6th month, I started to stress out. I got a little depressed, and I started to fail my classes at school, and I just felt like nothing was going to be okay if I had kept my child, and that my other 2 were going to suffer horribly. And I had decided that adoption was going to be the best thing, and that I needed to stay positive about it and keep thinking that giving my child up for adoption was the answer. So it was more towards right after the middle, towards my 6th month, that I decided that I definitely wanted to do adoption.
And who was the father of that child?
Jacob Roberts.
All right. And is that somebody that you were in a relationship with at the time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And did he?
Yes.
Yes. Sorry.
Did he agree with that decision?
Yes.
And he was on board with, once you made the decision to give up the child for adoption, he was on board with going through the process of adopting out this child?
Yes.
All right. And you indicated that you already had 2 children at that time?
Yes.
So the 2 children that you're currently raising, those were the children you had at that time?
Yes.
What steps did you take once you decided that you did want to place your baby up for adoption? What steps did you take towards that?
I didn't even know where to start. I hadn't really taken any. I was thinking about calling an adoption agency, but I think I was more in the balance of being worried what was going to happen to the baby, because you always hear those horror stories where somebody gets adopted, or the babies that were in the cage, kept in the crib, and they were all caged off. And that was around the time I was pregnant, and that horrified me. Just anything happening to this child just horrified me. And I didn't exactly know where to go. I was still in the beginning stages, and it wasn't up until a week before I gave birth that I actually found a family. I couldn't find anybody I just notified the agency, but I wasn't settled with the fact of giving him up for adoption quite yet.
Okay, and you keep saying him. Was it a boy?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that you were in school at the time. What were you in school for?
I was going to school to be a medical assistant.
Okay, and did you complete your course of education in that?
No, I did not.
Okay, and is that because you were ready to give birth?
Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. You had to quit school.
30 days before your due date, it's a liability for them if you do go into labor at the school. So they just ask that you take a maternity leave or a leave of absence. But when I left the school, I was in maternity leave, only to find out that the counselor that had set me up with it didn't know, but they did away with that months ago. So when I went on leave, I wasn't actually leaving the school. I was quitting. So I wasn't able to go back.
Okay. Is that something that you plan on doing in the future, possibly, going back and finishing?
Oh, yeah. I should be in Phoenix College right after the spring semester, or the summer semester.
Okay. All right. So do you recall what month it was? Well, what month was your baby due?
At first I thought it was November, and then it turned out to be December.
Okay. So when you left the school, what month was it in?
Where was it?
If you recall. And if you don't recall, it's okay.
I think it was November.
You think it was November
Yeah.
that you left the school?
Mhm.
All right. And so, when you left the school, what did you do with your time at that point?
I had a horrible pregnancy. Well, it wasn't completely horrible. I was constantly sick. I couldn't eat. I was constantly dehydrated because I couldn't keep any fluids down. So I mainly just stayed in bed. And at the time, also, my grandma was really sick. So I would go out to Sun City a lot to go take care of her.
Okay. Now tell us, who were you living with during this time frame?
I was between my mom's and Jacob, but when I say between, my mom lived in the apartment complex right next door to Jacob's, and because I had the two girls, there was more room at my mom's, but at Jacob's there was still room for everybody, but I'm so attached to my mom that I was always going and visiting my mom, so it was kind of I was living with Jacob, but I was also living with my mom.
Okay. All right. So did you have the ability to be contacted at both of those homes?
Yeah.
Did there come a point during your pregnancy that you met a woman by the name of Tammi Smith?
Yes.
Okay. And do you see her in the courtroom here today?
Yes.
Okay. Could you please point her and tell us one thing that she's wearing?
The red shirt.
Okay. Your Honor, would the record please reflect this witness has identified the defendant?
It should also reflect.
Thank you. Tell us how you met Tammy.
Well, I'm a very friendly person. I say hi to everybody, and when I met her, I was at Jack in the Box, and she has that vibe too, where you can just say hi, and it's a comforting vibe, and I had said hi to her when she was in line at Jack in the Box.
Okay, and so were you in line as well?
And I had already ordered.
Okay, and so where were you when you first saw her? Were you sitting down or standing and waiting for your food?
I think I was over, because right where the counter is, there's like a soda machine. I think I was over by the soda machine.
Okay, and where was this Jack in the Box located?
7th Street and Indian School.
So you indicated that you said hello to her, and then tell us what happened from there.
She had made a comment on, I can't remember exactly who exactly made the comment first, but there was a comment made about me being pregnant, and then she had mentioned that she was trying to adopt, and then I had mentioned that, well, I was thinking of giving my baby up for adoption.
And what happened after you said that?
We talked for about a minute or two, and then we exchanged phone numbers.
All right, and when you exchanged phone numbers with her, were you still standing in line, or?
No, I think she had already gotten her food, and then I was about to eat mine.
Okay, and what phone number did you give her?
I think I either gave her my mom's home phone or Jacob's cell phone number. I probably gave her my mom's home phone number first, and then later on gave her Jacob's cell phone number.
All right, did you have your own cell phone at the time?
No.
Okay, so the only way to contact you was either at your mother's or through Jacob's cell phone?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you can't remember which number you gave her exactly, but you think it was probably your mom's?
Yes.
Okay. How long would you say the conversation lasted between the two of you that day?
Just like maybe 2-3 minutes.
2 or 3 minutes?
I believe so, yeah.
So at the end of 2 or 3 minutes, you end the conversation by exchanging phone numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And then did she leave the Jack in the Box at that point?
I don't remember who left first.
Okay. Did you sit down and eat your lunch there?
Well, we only got the egg rolls and just little things. I believe it was me and my daughter, and just ate real quick and then left.
Okay. All right. Did she sit and eat with you, or did you part ways once you exchanged phone numbers?
I think we parted ways after we exchanged phone numbers.
Now, after you left the Jack in the Box that day, when was the next time that you had contact with her?
I don't think it was very long after. I wouldn't say more than a week or a couple days.
Right. And after you met her that day, did you go home and talk about it to anyone?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Who did you talk about it with?
I talked to Jacob and I talked to my mom about it because I'd been so confused with the adoption and what to do that I just kind of felt like, I don't know if people even got or not, but I just kind of felt like she was put in my path for a reason, and that maybe that the adoption wouldn't be as bad. So yeah, I talked to everybody about it.
And had you made a decision as to what you were going to do at that point?
I was kind of looking at Tammy adopting my baby.
Right. And what happened then?
Well, we had continued to talk. She came to a doctor's appointment with me. I signed the consent for her to get the medical records, and we continued to talk. And then Jacob wanted to meet her, and I still hadn't looked up much information about adoptions yet, and I had just talked with Jacob, and then we talked on the phone. I'm not sure if it was a lot, but I don't remember it being too often we had talked on the phone.
Now, when you're referring to we talking on the phone, are you talking about you and Tammy?
Yes.
All right. So you were talking to her on the phone during this time period.
Mm-hmm.
Is that yes?
Yes.
Now, you indicated that she went to a doctor's appointment with you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Was that one appointment that she attended with you?
Yes.
And did she attend the medical portion of your appointment, or was she just in the front office, or tell us about that?
She was just in the front office.
Right, and she obtained your consent to release medical information?
Yes.
Do you recall, was it medical information about you or the baby or both?
I don't remember.
Okay. But you did consent to her receiving some type of medical information?
Yes.
And how did you drive together to that appointment?
She took me, yes.
She took you? And did she pick you up at your house?
I don't remember if it was at my mom's or if it was at Jacob's.
Okay. And so she picked you up, took you to the appointment, and then did she take you home after that?
Yes.
Now, during that particular day when you went to the appointment, did you converse about the baby?
I believe so, yeah. I don't remember exactly what was said.
Okay. All right. Did she tell you anything about her history?
She had told me that she had a hysterectomy and she wasn't able to have babies anymore.
And how did that make you feel?
Oh, it made me feel bad. And being a mom myself, giving birth is the most incredible thing you could ever do. It's just, and raising a child from a baby it's I don't know, it's just it's an amazing experience. And it made me feel bad because I think that everybody, no matter who you are or what you are, should get the chance to experience that.
Right. Did she talk about having children?
No.
Okay. Did she talk about having adopted any children?
Yes.
All right. Tell us about that.
Well, this was at Einstein when I believe it was Einstein when I first found out about Hannah.
Okay. If that's later, we'll get to that later then. I thought it was during that conversation. I don't mean to cut you off, but
it's okay.
Okay. So that conversation didn't happen in the car that day about Hannah.
I don't think so. I think she had mentioned Hannah before, though.
Okay.
In a phone call.
All right. So did you know that she had a child that she had adopted?
I didn't know that she was adopted at first.
Okay, but you knew she had a child.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is that yes?
Yes. I'm so sorry.
So after she went to this doctor appointment with you, you indicated that you maintained contact with her through the phone.
Yes.
All right. Did you ever see her again?
Yes.
Okay, and where was it that you saw her?
Einstein Bagels.
Okay, and tell us who was all at the Einstein Bagels.
It was myself, Jacob Roberts, my daughter Amelia, and then Hannah, Tammy, and Jack.
Okay, so you were able to meet her husband Jack and her daughter Tammy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, her daughter Hannah. Okay. What was the purpose of that meeting at Einstein Bagel?
So we could all get to know each other. Jacob wanted to meet who I was talking about, and he wanted to be completely involved in the adoption. And like I said, that was after I hit the 6-month period, and he wanted to be completely involved and wanted to make the decision on helping choose the family. So he wanted to meet Tammy.
All right, and tell us what happened at that meeting. Tell us about it.
We sat down, and she had introduced us, and I had introduced Jacob and my daughter, and we were just talking about ways to adopt the baby, and she told us a little bit about herself, her past. She told us a little bit about, I believe it was Nashville, Tennessee, and how her and her husband met Jack, and then she had told me about Hannah and how who Hannah was, that it was Jack's granddaughter.
And tell us a little bit more about that.
Hannah, from what I know, is Jack's daughter's baby, and that Hannah's mom was really bad into drugs, really bad into alcohol, and that they were saving her by adopting Hannah. And I don't want to sound too rude or anything, but when she had explained about it, she kind of made the baby sound like a crack baby.
Okay. And how did that make you feel?
Honestly, it kind of made me think a little bit because I don't want somebody talking like that about me. I'm not like that. I rarely drink. I don't use drugs. So I didn't want somebody. It gave me a little bit of a bad impression because I would feel horrible if somebody made me out to look like that. And I believed it. I'm not saying she's lying about it because I don't know. But yeah, I just don't want somebody saying something like that about me.
Okay. That's understandable. And so once she told you a little bit about herself and her and Jack, you stated that you also talked about ways to adopt.
Yes.
Okay, tell us about that.
Well, there was a few ways that she had come up with that she could adopt the baby. One of them was that I could put Jack on the birth certificate, even though Jacob was right there. Put Jack on the birth certificate and see that he was the father so she could do a step-parent adoption.
And how did that make you feel when she suggested that?
Well, Jacob's the father, and I want my baby's dad on the birth certificate. It kind of, I was like, well, no.
Did you tell her, no, I'm not doing that?
Yeah, and then there was another idea brought up, and there was a couple ideas brought up. There was that one, and then there was that I could sign my custody and rights over to her, and then she could adopt the baby that way. I would give up full rights. I would give her the baby after the baby's born, and let them know that I'm not able to take care of another child, and that was one of the ways. And then the other one was you know how you can leave your child at a hospital, like abandon them? I could abandon the baby, and then she could adopt the baby that way.
Okay, and did she give you a suggestion as to how you could abandon the baby?
Leave her with the baby.
Okay, so just drop the baby off once the baby's born and take off. Therefore, the baby would be deemed abandoned?
Yes, and then she'd be able to adopt him.
All right, and what did you think in response to that?
Well, not just to that, but to all of it. It just didn't seem right. We had taken my daughter Amelia to the bathroom, and I told Jacob, it just doesn't. I don't want to do this. I want to go through legal ways. And he goes, that's understandable. And then we were only there for about 5 more minutes after that before we left, but it really didn't, it made me feel uneasy.
Okay. Did you, at that point, have the services of an adoption agency?
Yeah, it took me a couple of weeks before I called the adoption agency, but I finally called them, and it was Carrie B. Moore's office, and I called them, and they said that Tammy had already contacted them about doing an adoption.
Objection, you're saying? I would agree.
Sustained.
Move to strike, Your Honor.
And the last answer will be stricken from the record. Make sure when you answer you're not talking about what somebody else told you.
Oh, okay.
That was the issue, and be careful to make sure you just answer the question that's asked.
Oh, okay.
So she's going to ask you another question. Go ahead.
Can you clarify what was the name of the agency?
Carrie B. Moore?
Carrie B. Moore?
Yeah, that was the attorney, yeah.
Okay. And was it an agency or an attorney, or was it a combination?
I think it was a combination.
Okay, all right. So just so we're clear, had you contacted this agency prior to meeting at the Einstein Bagel or after?
They're the ones that I called in the very beginning of the pregnancy, but I never called them back. And then after we had met at Einstein Bagels, I called them after.
Okay, all right. So when you met at the Einstein Bagel, you indicated that there were different ideas that Tammy had offered as to how to adopt the baby.
Yes.
You said one was to put Jack, her husband, on the birth certificate.
Yes.
One was to sign over custody of your child to her, and then she'd adopt the child.
Yes.
One was to abandon the child.
Yes.
And were there any other options given?
No.
Did you ask her for ways to adopt the child, or did you assume you were going to go through the normal process?
I assumed that she knew how because she said that she had tried to adopt in the past, so I thought that she already knew. But she said that, I don't remember if it didn't work the prior times that she had tried to adopt, but I thought that she already knew. And I do remember bringing up, well, I know that we have to go through the courts, but she assured me that she would handle that.
She what?
She said that she would handle that.
Okay. All right. So after this meeting, what were your feelings about giving your child to her at that time?
I wasn't as sure. There was just more than talking about the adoption that kind of made me and Jacob a little uneasy. I really wanted to go through an agency, and I still felt bad for her that she couldn't have a baby, and I wanted her to have a baby, and I don't know, I just kind of felt like I would be helping her out this way, and that it would make her happy, and that she would take care of the baby. But after meeting Einstein Bagel, I was more on the rocks than on the edge about it. It just, because the whole conversation that we had, I mean, she seems like a really awesome person who comes from a good family, but I didn't feel right after Einstein.
Okay, and why didn't you feel right?
I'm not trying to...
Ask an answer, Your Honor.
I don't believe I've asked that question, Your Honor.
We're getting close. I'll let her answer that.
What were the reasons?
It was finding out about Hannah. I was under the assumption that Hannah was hers, and then... Okay, I'll just say it. Jack had mentioned that...
Objection, hearsay.
Sustaining, you can't talk about what somebody else said, so what Jack said. So if that's the rest of your answer, then your answer's finished.
Okay.
Is there any other reason than the one you were about to say?
No.
After that point, when you met her at the Einstein Bagel, did you still remain in contact with her?
Yes.
Okay, for about how long?
I would say just a couple weeks until after I called the adoption agency.
And what were your conversations like during that time?
We just talked about the progress of the baby, how things are going. But I remember the phone calls were cut real slim. After I contacted the adoption agency, I finally told Jacob, just ignore the phone calls. Just, tell her we can't talk right now, or that I'm busy, or that I'm not home, or I just started avoiding her.
Okay. How often was she calling?
Sometimes twice a day, and then once a day, and then it slowed to every other day.
Okay. And did you ever tell her that you didn't want her to adopt your baby at any point?
No, I don't remember saying that, and not until after I contacted the attorney's office.
Okay, but at some point did you tell her we're giving the baby to somebody else?
Yes.
All right, and when was that?
That was, I think it was a week and a half before I gave birth.
Okay, and when did you give birth?
December 15th.
And after you told her about a week and a half before the baby was due, did she know the due date, by the way? Had you told her December 15th was the due date?
I think I told her December 11th because that's what at first we thought it was November 25th or 20th, and then December 11th, and then it was December 15th. They finally induced me.
They induced you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And did you have your baby naturally, or did you have a C-section?
I had to have a C-section.
And did you relay that information to Tammy?
Yeah, I think I told her.
Okay, did you talk to her after the baby was born?
Yes.
All right, and tell us about that.
I had told her about the baby, and because she had called a couple times out of the blue, and this was like around the 20th? It was before Christmas, and then I had talked to her very briefly after Christmas, around like the 27th or the 28th. But yeah, I told her that I had the baby. She was real nice about it. She just wanted to hear how everything went and wish us the best.
Okay, and after Christmas, did you talk to her?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Am I allowed to say? Well, it was when everything was coming out with the baby Gabriel.
Okay.
She had called us. She talked to Jacob first, and then I was just kind of standing there. But when she was talking, we were both listening, and she was pretty much trying to confess her innocence, how she didn't do anything wrong.
Okay, about how many times did she call you after that?
Maybe one other time after that, but I told Jacob to tell her to stop calling.
Okay.
We don't want anything to do with it.
Okay, and did the calls end after that?
I believe so, yeah. I think the last one was in January of 2010.
The last time she called you?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yes.
And at that point, you had already given your baby up?
Yes.
And she knew that?
Yes.
Okay, so did you end up using the agency?
Yes.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
You may.
No further questions.
Thank you. Cross-examination, Ms. Phillips.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, Ms. Hoover.
Hi.
You talked about how when you became pregnant, you were in school, right?
Yes.
And you actually had to leave school because you were pregnant, right?
Yes, it's a liability for them if they don't want you to give birth there.
And when you left school, were you employed? Were you working?
No, I was usually sick.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It's terrible.
He was healthy, that's all that matters.
So you told us today about how you met Tammy at the Jack in the Box and you were in line.
Yes.
And that was in November of 2009, correct?
I believe so, yes. It was either the end of October or it was in November. I don't quite remember. It was a while ago.
So the time range, October or November 2009?
Yes.
Okay. And you were visibly pregnant at the time, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you and Tammy struck up a conversation.
Yes.
And I believe you said that you were the one who said hello first.
Oh, yes.
Because you're friendly.
Yes.
And Tammy's very friendly.
Yes.
And I think you said, I'm a very friendly person, and there was a comforting vibe. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah, I loved how you expressed that. And you started talking with her, and you told her at some point that you were sad because you decided to give up your baby for adoption, right?
Yes.
Okay. And it sounds from your testimony today that that was an extremely difficult decision for you. I'm sorry.
It's one of the hardest things you'll ever do.
And I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to upset you at all, but I have to ask you these questions, okay?
It's fine.
Okay. And take as much time as you need. Do you have Kleenex up there? Take your time, ma'am, and tell me when you're ready.
You're fine. Sorry.
Okay. Do you have some water?
I'm fine.
Okay. So, I believe your answer was yes. It sounds like this was a tremendously difficult decision for you.
Yes.
And clearly a very emotional one.
Yes.
So this must have been a very, very difficult time for you.
Yes, it was.
So when you were talking about Tammy and sharing that you were thinking about putting the baby up for adoption, she mentioned she was interested in adopting a baby.
Yes.
And so you exchanged phone numbers
Yes.
with her, and you stayed in contact with her.
Yes.
And you talked to her a few times
Yes.
and met her a few times.
Yes.
And apparently you told several people about Tammy also, your mom,
Yes.
and you told Jacob.
Yes.
And at one point you were seriously considering having her adopt your baby.
Yes.
And then at some point you decided not to.
It would be after Einstein Bagels, yes.
Yes, okay. And it's my understanding that you wanted to go through an adoption agency, correct?
Yes.
And it's your testimony that Tammy did not want to go through an adoption agency.
Yes.
But she did tell you that she had an adoption attorney, didn't she?
No. No.
And then apparently there was some argument about money.
No.
And in fact, it was you who wanted some money from the Smiths.
No. Oh, yes. Can I go back to that? Yes.
Of course. Please explain your answer.
I had access in the beginning of my pregnancy, and then I lost it. And I didn't know how I was going to pay for the medical bills. And it was, man, how much was it? It was, one visit was, because like I said, I was sick all the time and I had complications constantly. I had just a little over $900 in medical expenses from a hospital visit that I had. I swelled like a balloon one night and I couldn't breathe. And
Okay, I'm sorry. Can I just stop you right there? I mean, I think you've answered the question. I don't mean to cut you off, but
It's fine.
You did want money from the Smiths, though.
yes.
Correct. Okay.
Well, not for me, but
Okay.
I never really asked them though.
I'm sorry. You've answered the question, and I'm not trying to berate you, but we are supposed to stick to the subject.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm sorry for cutting you off, but there was a discussion about money.
Yes.
Okay. And you wanted some money from the Smiths.
Yes.
And basically, they wouldn't give you money.
It's not, I don't remember, no.
No, they wouldn't give you money, is the question.
No.
No? Okay. And you ultimately decided to let someone else adopt your baby.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. But for a while there, you did think that Tammy and Jack might be the ones.
Yes.
Tammy even went to a doctor appointment with you,
Yes.
and they both told you a great deal of personal information about themselves.
Mainly about Nashville and how they met, yeah.
Well, Tammy also told you she'd had a hysterectomy.
Yes.
That's pretty personal.
Yes.
Yeah. And they explained to you the reasons that they wanted to adopt a baby.
Yes.
But basically, you went another route for the adoption because you just could not work things out with them.
No. No, the reason why I didn't go with them is because it just,
Okay, ma'am, you have explained that answer on your direct testimony. I'm just asking you, you chose to go another route because you couldn't work things out with them. It didn't work out.
correct. Yes.
And at some point you must have started talking to other people about adopting your baby.
No.
You didn't talk to anybody else about adopting your baby?
Only Carrie B. Moore and that was it.
I'm sorry, only what?
Only Carrie B. Moore's office?
Oh, okay, so, but yeah, that's other people, right?
Oh,
You
yeah,
talked to the
sorry.
adoption agency. I'm sorry if that wasn't
Yeah.
clear. You talked to the adoption agency about adopting the baby out.
Right.
Okay. And ultimately, you did give that child up for adoption.
Yes.
And I believe it was your testimony that you really were still sort of uncertain about that up until about a week before he was born.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you. Redirect, Ms. Romero.
Yes, Rachel, I know you were trying to explain a little bit earlier about your medical expenses. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I had lost my access and I did go to a doctor's appointment. But like I said, I was sick all the time and I didn't have the money to pay for that. And I don't know, I didn't even know how I was going to pay for it because I could barely pay for anything that I had at the time. And I had gotten that medical expense, and then I had a $240, once I got my access back, they didn't pay for something, and I had to pay $240, which I paid off all of it. I had to pay $240 for, no, it's $240, anyways, for some test results, because they had thought that my baby had Down syndrome, and I already have one child who has a mental disability, and just two kids with a mental disability just would have been really hard. But I needed to make sure, so I had another test done, but I didn't know that Access didn't pay for both testing, and I just wanted to make sure that it was positive for it.
So your medical expenses that you incurred were because of the pregnancy.
Oh, yeah, yes.
And were you requesting that money to be, did you ask Tammy or Jack for money?
I never asked them directly for money. That's what I was trying to explain.
Okay, tell us about that.
The only thing that I was asking, I guess it would be asking her for money. I asked her to pay the medical bills. I never asked for money for myself. I mean, I'm a very humble person with what little I have.
Okay. And did that become an issue in your discussions at that point?
No.
Okay.
No.
Was that the reason that the adoption with the Smiths didn't go through?
No, not at all.
Did they tell you, no, we're not going to give you that money?
No.
Okay.
We just kind of, it was like dust under the rug. It just kind of got brushed under.
Okay.
I'm not going to make a big deal about something like that.
All right. And You were asked the question that you chose, or the statement actually was made that you chose to go with others because it didn't work out between you and the Smiths.
Correct.
Was there something that needed to be worked out, or did you just decide not to use them?
There wasn't anything really to be worked out. I decided not to use them because why would you want to put somebody else in your birth certificate when the child has a father? It's not like I sleep around. I know who the father is. That's who needs to go on the birth certificate. And I just kind of, when she had mentioned that, I'm like, no.
All right, I have no further questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Before Ms. Hoover steps down, does the jury have any questions for her? We do have a question. Sit tight. It's in writing. I've got to look at it first. Asking it, but the jury's really asking it, so give them the answer. Okay? So here's the question. Did you give Tammy Smith the name of the adoption agency?
Yes, I did.
Follow up, Ms. Romano.
Yes, thank you. In what context did you give it to her?
It was towards when we stopped talking, because I didn't want to go through with all of her ideas of putting Jack on the birth certificate, abandoning my child, or any of the ways, actually. I didn't like that. I'm the type of person where it's got to be legal or it's not at all. And I told her that I wanted to go through an adoption agency, and I had called one that she had already called.
When you say you called one that she had already called, to explain that.
It wouldn't be hearsay. She had called, I had called Carrie B. Moore's office, and they've already heard of Tammy. She had already called.
Okay, so
Objection, Your Honor, move to strike. That's the same hearsay statement you struck
It
earlier.
is, and Ms. Hoover didn't want to say it, but the question asked for it, unfortunately, so we're going to strike that last answer. The jury's not to consider it. Ask another question.
where did you get the name of this agency?
Originally, I think I got it from reviews online.
Okay. And when you said you told Tammy around the time.
Well, I had told Tammy about who I was going through after I found out, but she had already called there.
Okay, all right. Let me ask a clarifying question. Did you have contact with the agency and they gave you some information about Tammy?
Yes.
Okay, and then did you discuss that with Tammy?
I think that's when we kind of stopped all contact. They had told me.
Wait a minute, stop. Let's get off this. We're never going to get to a
All
point
right.
where we're going to ask a question that's not going to result in a well-taken objection. So let's ask a different question or pass the witness.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Phyllis, follow up.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, any other questions for Ms. Hoover before we let her step down? May this witness be excused?
Yes, please, Your Honor.
May this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may step down. You're finished. Thank you. Watch your step going down.
Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, we're at kind of the time for our afternoon break. So we're going to take our afternoon break. We'll take about 15 minutes, so we'll be back around 3:15. Okay, don't go anywhere yet. And you're going to get the magic noise. Hang on for a second. Good news and bad news. Bad news for us, because we like to keep on the schedule we wanted. We had a witness who was going to be here this afternoon but had a transportation issue, so they're not going to be here, which means we don't have any other witnesses for this afternoon, which means you don't have to come back at 3:15. You're going to be released now for the weekend. So let me give you that admonition again, times 3. Again, you're going into a weekend where you may run into people that you haven't seen since the trial started, and they'll ask you, what have you been doing? Or maybe somebody will talk about the trial or some other way to put it in front of you and want to talk about the case. You may be walking by a television and something will be on about the case. You have to make sure you don't have any exposure to the case at all. So continue to work hard to do that. I know it can be difficult. I'm glad you've been able to do it so far, so keep going. Now, the last 2 weeks, we've had trial Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Next week, we have trial on Monday. So it's going to be a 4-day week next week. As I told you earlier, we are ahead of schedule in terms of what we thought the calendar was going to be, so we're just fine. And we're moving along nicely from a scheduling perspective. So make sure you're back ready to go on Monday. So Monday, not Tuesday. Be here at 10:30. Have a good weekend, and we will see you on Monday. Okay, please be seated, everyone. Okay, we are outside the presence of the jury. I know, Ms. Phillips, you want to revisit the Dr. O'Connell issue, and I see there's a transcript that's already been prepared for at least a portion of Ms. Ayala's testimony. We talked that I would prefer that if we're going to raise the issue again, we do it in writing, but I'm not going to prohibit you from doing it if you want to do it orally. I don't think it's conducive to getting me to take a second look. If we're just going to orally raise it again, I can read the transcript. It's your motion. Obviously, you need to get it to the state right away. Then there needs to be a communication about whether the state feels like it needs to respond in writing. It may. Typically, out of safety, they do. But we'll want to turn it around pretty quickly. Let's segue into a scheduling discussion. We're, I think, getting fairly close, I sense, to the state getting through its witnesses. So let's talk about where we're at. Who else do you plan on calling? And let's talk about how long that's going to take to get through.
Your Honor, the witnesses that we still have coming in to testify are the Miami Beach Police Department officer, Jenny Velasquez.
Okay.
And she's planning on being here first thing Monday morning.
Okay.
We also have Detective Harris. And for a reminder, he's one of the detectives who cannot be filmed.
Okay. And make sure we get that reminder again before he comes in, and we'll direct the TV coverage to make sure that Detective Harris is not captured on film.
And we have Detective Thompson. Detective McCluskey.
Okay.
Detective Ryberg.
1%. Okay.
And Detective Ramirez.
And that points to me to potentially a end of the day, Monday or Tuesday finish, probably.
No, Your Honor, Detective Ramirez is going to take quite some time. We imagine probably until Wednesday at least.
Okay. All right. As the case agent, that does make sense. So we're looking at probably into Wednesday with the defense case. The defense, I think you had 2 witnesses plus Ms. Smith, I think you said?
That's correct, Judge.
Okay, so we'll get into that Wednesday, Thursday. So we'll get into at least early next week in terms of finishing the state's case, the defense case, and then we'll see, obviously, if there's any rebuttal case then. But it looks like the jury's possibly going to get the case around the middle of next week, would be my guess right now. So that puts us obviously well within the time we told the jury.
Well, Your Honor, I'm not sure about that. I don't know that we'll get into the defense case by Wednesday. I think we'll be well into Wednesday with our witnesses, with Detective Ramirez. We intend to publish some evidence that will take some time. So I expected we probably wouldn't get into the defense case until Thursday. I know we had talked before about settling jury instructions, and I thought this court had talked about closing statements the following Monday if we thought we were finished with everything else.
Well, it depends. If we finish on Tuesday, we're not going to wait a week. Let's see where we're at. The bottom line is I anticipate probably a dark day between evidence and closing, so we can settle instructions and it gives you some time. So wherever that lands, it lands.
I'm going to tell the judge I'm pretty confident that we're not going to finish Tuesday, but we might finish sometime Wednesday.
Okay.
With our case.
All right.
But I could be surprised. Things may go faster than I think. They did today.
Yeah, some of the witnesses tend to go quickly. I understand Detective Ramirez may take a while. Okay. All right. Any motions? We obviously know that there's an issue relating to Dr. O'Connell that's going to be re-raised. Any other issues out there that we should talk about now that you know are coming that we can address or talk about now from either side?
Your Honor, the only thing is we needed to replace the exhibits. Remember, Exhibit 8 had too much information on it, so we made 2 other exhibits to 8A and 8B, and I don't know if we did that on the record yet. We did it with Exhibit 50, but I don't think we did it with Exhibit 8.
I don't think we did it with 8. So we have Exhibit 8, similar to Exhibit 50. We found had some additional material that shouldn't have been part of the exhibit. I think by agreement we've created Exhibits 8A and B to replace Exhibit 8, correct?
We will create them. We haven't given them to the clerk yet for Monday.
Okay. So there's no objection to that process from the defense, correct?
Correct.
All right. Since they haven't been created yet, they can't be in evidence yet. So when you have them created, let me know, and we don't have to do it in front of the jury. We can just...
It's just a matter of defense counsel listening to the actual exhibit itself and making sure they're okay with us having it marked.
Okay, that's fine. One thing with technology, let's try and make sure we do dry runs on everything before we play it in court. There's some new technology, and if we're going to have a glitch, let's figure it out before and get it resolved so we don't make the jury wait while we're figuring it out going forward. I think we're all getting used to what we can do here in the courtroom. Anything else from the defendant's perspective that we need to talk about?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay, we're good from the state?
Yes, sure.
All right, so back Monday at 10:30, and I'll see everybody then. Let the record reflect the presence of Ms. Smith, counsel. The jury's not here. Good morning, everyone. I wanted to talk to the lawyers and talk to the media, actually, about an issue that we may have. As I understand it, the state is intending on publishing to the jury some records, specifically, I think, phone records that may have names and phone numbers of witnesses and perhaps others. Is that correct, Ms. Andrews?
Yes, sure.
You had a concern that the names and phone numbers of witnesses not be broadcast over the air, and we talked previously about making sure that we would not have that information go out on the TV live or otherwise. Is that the concern that you had?
Just the phone numbers, Your Honor, not the names.
Yeah, the names should be okay. They're witnesses, I think, and names generally would be all right even if they're not witnesses. I think phone numbers, and do we have some billing addresses potentially as well?
Just email addresses, those types of things.
Okay. What I'd like you to do, and I think the folks from in-session indicated they didn't have a problem with making sure that that information did not go out over the air. What I'd like you to do is, if you know you're about to ask a witness about a phone number, give us a heads up, because the witness may have to say something about a phone number, or you may say, is this a phone number or your phone number or the phone number of someone else. Give us a heads up if you're going to do that so they know it's coming as best we can. Are you expecting to actually say the phone number so it's more than just on paper?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so you have to give us a heads up and say, I'm going to set forth a phone number. I'm going to tell you or give you a phone number right now, so they have the heads up that they can turn the audio down so it does not get broadcast. And I think they've indicated that they're able to do that, but I want to be able to give them a heads up so we don't have any issues going forward. So we're going to proceed that way. Any other issues we need to talk about before we get the jury?
Your Honor, there is one.
Okay.
Last week, I talked to Ms. Phillips about Detective Thompson's testimony. Detective Thompson participated in a approximately 4-hour free talk interview with Elizabeth Johnson after she returned to Arizona after her arrest. I specifically asked Ms. Phillips if it was their intention of questioning the detective at all about the free talk. I indicated to her that I didn't feel it was admissible, and Ms. Phillips indicated she also did not. I said, are you sure? Because if you think it's admissible at all, we need to know, because otherwise I'm going to tell Detective Thompson he does not need to prepare for that portion of the interview for his testimony. And it was my understanding that if they changed their mind, they would let me know. And what I'm understanding now is Mr. Lee is telling Ms. Ramuno that he intends to ask questions about that interview.
Okay, Mr. Lee?
Judge, I'm not aware of the conversation that Ms. Phillips had. I would be happy to have them have a chance to do that. Let's move him a day, but I think it's important. There's a lot of things that are critical to this case that are in that free talk. And let me get to it. It goes especially to the conspiracy in this particular case. There's shifting stories that Elizabeth Johnson gives as to what happened, and that's all recorded on this free talk. And it's critical to our case. Now, I would have told them earlier. Quite frankly, I came in this weekend on Saturday, and I spent 12 hours going through all this stuff, and I listened to the interview for the first time myself, all the way through, took notes on it, and decided it was important to use. Now, if they need an extra day, then let's bring him in another day. But this is critical to the defense. I was not aware of that conversation. There's just critical things here that go directly to the conspiracy in this case, especially to the custodial interference account. She's charged with the conspiracy in this case, and we need to get into that, and we need to show the shifting stories that Elizabeth Johnson gave police. There's lots, and there's more than that. There's lots of critical information to the defense in this particular case. And I would be happy if they wanted to save their redirect for another day. If they wanted to come back, redirect, have a chance to go through what I've gone through.
They want their witness to be able to respond appropriately to cross, so it's not about the redirect.
Judge, this is all on tape.
You have the right to get into it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you represented to them that you weren't, and it's put them in a bad spot, and we have to deal with that. So I have to balance your right to get into it, perhaps your inconsistent or the defense team's inconsistent message to the prosecution about what you were going to do, and then this witness's ability to prepare and potentially, hopefully not, but potentially his availability to testify.
Well, and Your Honor, I don't know that it's admissible, and that was the concern I had in the first place, and what I thought Ms. Phillips and I agreed upon is pursuant to the rules of evidence 801-2 it says a statement by a co-conspirator of a party during the course and in furtherance of the conspiracy is not hearsay. This is a statement that was obtained after her arrest, not in furtherance of the conspiracy. So that also goes to Detective Valenzuela's testimony. She's our first witness this morning. She had the first contact with Elizabeth Johnson in Miami, Florida. And Elizabeth Johnson, while it was not a formal interview, made some statements to Detective Valenzuela that also would be at the time of her arrest and after the conspiracy was over. And so our concern is they want to get into statements that are not even, they're hearsay because they are statements not made in furtherance of the conspiracy. They were statements made at the time of her arrest or after her arrest. And so my concern is that might be something that needs to be briefed, or we need to look at the case law to see if statements after the conspiracy is over are admissible. But according to the rule of evidence, it's only statements made during the course of the conspiracy that are admissible. And that's my concern. Now we have two detectives who are first up this morning, the only two detectives we have set to go this morning. Detective Thompson's testimony is quite lengthy testimony that encompasses a great deal of information. Detective Valenzuela is on a flight back to Miami this afternoon. And so we really needed to know ahead of time if the defense felt they thought these were admissible after I had that previous discussion about believing that they weren't admissible. I will tell you that I did tell Ms. Phillips that I didn't care one way or another, but I needed a heads up if they were going to get into those statements because I needed to look into, number one, preparing the detectives to discuss them, and number two, the legality of the admissibility of those statements.
Well, we got two separate issues. You're assuming that once Ms. Johnson was arrested, then the conspiracy ends. I'm not sure, at least intuitively, without looking at the case law, that I would agree. You can continue a conspiracy by not speaking and allowing the goals of the conspiracy to continue to be met, at least theoretically, it seems to me. So I'm not so sure I agree, at least unfortunately off the cuff, that the arrest ends the conspiracy such that it changes the nature of what she says. So I guess, Ms. Phillips, why don't you tell me what you want to tell me, and we'll figure out what we're going to do about it.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to clarify the record. My recollection is the conversation I had with Miss Andrews was she indicated to me that I believe, and I didn't take notes, this is strictly from my memory, that she didn't think she was going to use the free talk. What did I think about that? And I said, I haven't listened to it in a while. This was maybe a week ago. Let me listen to it again, and I will get back to you. The next day, we chatted very briefly, and I believe the consensus was that it probably wasn't admissible. And that was the end of the conversation as I recall it, Your Honor. During the course of the week, Mr. Lee agreed that he would be cross-examining Detective Thompson. And again, over the weekend, Mr. Lee decided it was pertinent and that he wanted to use it. So I just want to assure the court that there's nothing underhanded going on here. We've tried to be very open with the state, and we agree the state has been open with us about using witnesses and scheduling witnesses, but I just want to assure the court that there's nothing underhand going on here. It seems like almost every day the defense has to defend itself and its actions and its strategy, Your Honor, and I'm just getting a little tired of it, and I just want to assure the court that we don't operate that way.
Well, you may not operate that way, and it's not underhanded, but what it is, though, is really, I'm trying to think of the right word to describe it. You are certainly permitted to now come in and say you want to use it, but you should give more of a heads up to the state and actually to the court and for our jury who now may have to wait while I have to sort through this. If Mr. Lee decides he wants to use it, and again, if he decides he wants to, that's fine. There needs to be a heads up. If you figured it out Saturday, there should have been an email Saturday, and I should have heard about it first thing this morning and made an adjustment. And it is now a pattern where you made a call and you decide, no, we don't like that, we're going to change, and we will not agree to this testimony, or we want to do this. It's your right to do it, but when you do it at the last minute, it creates issues, and if the state's asking for some relief in terms of timing and the ability to brief it, if they now have to essentially bring a motion in limine to exclude it, I'm going to give them the opportunity to do it because I don't have the authority in front of me. And so now I'm just trying to decide without any authority what's appropriate in terms of admissibility, and then what do we do with the witnesses? And I'm getting frustrated by it. So we are where we are, and we're going to play forward. But in terms of you saying you don't like there to be a suggestion that there's something underhanded, there's nothing underhanded, but there is something that basically is causing delays because you're making changes in what you want to do. And that is creating issues that if we had a heads up earlier, it would be a lot better. If I thought you were doing it to play strategic games, then I'd be really upset. I think it is true that Mr. Lee came on and decided he wanted to use it, and you're entitled to do it. But that is a change from where you left it, at least implicitly, with Ms. Andrews, that you weren't going to use it. And now you intend on using it. And we're finding it out the day that you want to use it, and that creates issues. So what are we going to do about it?
I would suggest in regard to Detective Valenzuela, what I told Ms. Phillips is it didn't matter to the state one way or another whether it came in, whether Elizabeth Johnson's statements after the conspiracy came in, and it doesn't. I just believe that they were not legally, that it was not a legal hearsay exception for them to come in. But we don't have any objection to any of her statements coming in. So as far as Detective Valenzuela, who is our first witness to testify, I think we go ahead and proceed. She is prepared, I believe, to talk about Elizabeth Johnson's statements that Elizabeth Johnson made to the detective, and we can proceed with Detective Valenzuela. My understanding is Detective Thompson's testimony will be quite lengthy. I would imagine he will go into the afternoon. So we will have the lunch hour to talk to him and see if he feels comfortable in talking about that free talk. He fortunately has done quite a description of the interview in his police report. He has not reviewed it lately. He would have liked the opportunity to have reviewed it. He would have liked the opportunity to have listened to it. I don't even believe we have a transcript to provide him, and even if we did, it would take longer than the lunch hour for him to review it. But it's not our position necessarily that we're concerned about it being admitted. That's fine with the state. We just didn't believe there was a legal hearsay exception, and we were having a conversation with the defense to ask them what they felt in case they wanted to keep it out. But if they want to get into it, I'm not concerned about that. We can stipulate that it comes in regardless of the law. I I just wanted the opportunity for the detective to be prepared for it.
Okay, so we just had an academic conversation about its admissibility when you're not going to object. I understand that maybe there would have been an issue, but you need to tell me if you're not going to object so I don't even have to think about it going forward. So you're not objecting on hearsay grounds, correct?
Right, and Your Honor, the reason I'm telling you that we didn't think it was admissible is why we didn't have the detective prepare for it and why I asked Ms. Phillips about it in the first place. If they had thought it was admissible or wanted to seek it one way or the other, we would have proceeded differently. But no, we don't object to the admissibility of the statements themselves. We just wanted the opportunity to have the detective prepared and aware that they were going to seek information we don't think is necessarily admissible.
Okay.
So am I correct that we're stipulating it in?
Well, they're not going to object.
They're not going to object. Okay. So I don't need to prepare any legal arguments otherwise.
It doesn't look that way. Let's talk about, so it's very clear what we're doing. Is it Valenzuela or Velasquez?
Velasquez.
Velasquez? Okay. Hello. It's Detective Velasquez. And so Detective Velasquez can answer questions about the interview with Elizabeth Johnson. So no issue there. You can ask questions on cross. We're good. And
I would like to be permitted to ask questions on direct.
that's fine. Why wouldn't you be able
Well,
to do that?
there's a difference between not objecting and stipulating that it comes in.
Okay. Well, I'd be surprised if Mr. Lee now objects to it if you're asking questions.
I hadn't intended on objecting to it.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead with Detective Velasquez, and it's fair game. The Elizabeth Johnson statements are fair game. We'll get through her testimony. With respect to Detective Thompson, based on the timing, you should have plenty of time to prepare him over the lunch hour, and we should be fine, and we don't have any legal issues. Okay, that wasn't as easy as it should have been, but we're good. Anything else we need to talk about before we bring the jury?
Oh, yes, Your Honor. In regards to Exhibit 197, and I have spoken with defense counsel about this, there are only certain items within that exhibit that we will be admitting, so we are requesting permission to mark the 3 items within 197 as 197A.
Okay, what is 197?
197 are the certifications for MySpace, and within that envelope contains DVDs as well as certifications regarding other users, and we just want the 3 of the certifications regarding the pertinent individuals in this case to be admitted.
Okay, so they're requesting to pull out 3 documents. We'll designate them as 197, and actually the way we do it, it's 197.001 will be the separate exhibit. You'll introduce presumably 197.001 and not 197. Ms. Phillips, you okay with that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. So we're good. Anything else we need to talk about from the state's
May I
perspective?
approach so that I can hand it to the clerk?
You may. It's Ms. Phillips, anything else before we bring in the jury?
I believe so, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get the jury.
Your Honor, can we have just a moment, please?
Oops, Kim, wait 1 minute.
Excuse me.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, good morning. Welcome back. We'll let you get seated and situated. Did we move down one, I think? Okay. Hope you had a good weekend. Did anybody have any issues with respect to any media contact? I'm getting no's. No one is nodding yes. That's good. As you can see, that clock is fast again, about a half hour. We're trying to fix that to make sure it's correct. Sorry for making you wait a little bit, but we're ready to go now. We left off with the state getting ready to call its next witness, so the state may call its next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Detective Velasquez.
Detective, come on up. Eileen, who's seated next to me, is going to swear you in, so come right up here.
You can stop right there. Could you just spell your name, please? Velazquez. First name?
Jenny, Jenny.
Please raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
And then come on over. Actually, going to come this way. You're going to go around the front. Watch your step coming around. chair is heavy.
I see.
And Ms. Andrews, you may proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective, would you please introduce yourself?
I am Detective Jenny Velasquez. I'm with the Miami Beach Police Department.
How long have you worked with the Miami Beach Police Department?
7 years.
And what capacity do you work?
I work for the Special Victims Unit, where we investigate crimes against children, missing persons, and crimes against the elderly.
And were you working in that same capacity in December of 2009?
Yes.
And on December 30th, 2009, were you asked to assist in an investigation being conducted by the FBI and the Tempe Police Department?
Yes.
What were you asked to do?
We were asked to locate Elizabeth Johnson, who was, believed to be in the Miami Beach area.
Were you provided any information to help you locate her?
We received a flyer from the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, and we also spoke to a sergeant at the Tempe Police Department.
Was there a certain location in the Miami Beach area that you were concentrating looking for her?
Yes, there was a hostel, I believe located on 20th Street, if my memory serves me correct. It's basically a little motel where transients stay.
And what was it that you did to look for Elizabeth Johnson on that day?
We went to the general area and we located the hostel. When I say we, I'm also speaking of my sergeant who was ill and was unable to attend. We went to the area, we located the hostel, we made contact with some of the residents within the hostel with the flyer. At first, we didn't find anyone that told us that they had seen Elizabeth or a baby. We decided, because it is a very small block, to remain there in case she just wasn't there. And while we were sitting waiting, we had a gentleman who I believe was a manager of the location at the time approach us and tell us that he had seen her. She was staying on the second floor, but there was no baby. I remember specifically he said that there were no children allowed in that area.
Let me ask you this. What's the name of your sergeant?
Mark Schoenfeld.
And you say he's ill now?
Correct.
And so you and Sergeant Schoenfeld were at the Miami hostel and you were provided information that Elizabeth Johnson was staying there?
That is correct.
You indicated that you had a flyer. Was there information on the flyer that gave you a description or a photograph of Elizabeth Johnson?
Yes, I believe the flyer had a picture of her as well as the baby.
And you indicated that the manager of the hostel indicated that there was no baby at the hostel. What did you do after you learned this information?
We waited. There's like a little garden common area where basically in order for you to come in and out of the hostel, you would have to go through. And we had clear view of her apartment, basically, where she was staying at, which was on the second floor. She eventually came in with a bag of clothing from either Ross or TJ Maxx. So it was a retail store that was located on Miami Beach.
Let me ask you this. You said that her apartment was on the second floor. How is it that she would enter into the apartment? Was there a separate entrance, or did she have to go into the hostel to enter her apartment?
She had to come into the hostel to go up the stairs into the apartment.
And when you said you were watching the apartment and Sergeant Schoenfeld was watching the apartment, were you together or did you take different locations?
No, we were together.
And you said she came up and she was carrying some sort of bag of clothing. What did you see after you saw that?
I recognized her immediately, and I approached her and I asked her if she was Elizabeth Johnson, and she said no. I forget a name that she gave me, but she did give me a different name. Then I showed her the flyer, and she said, yes, I'm Elizabeth Johnson.
And was her appearance the same as the flyer?
I don't recall at the time if it was the same or not. I believe that she had like long blonde hair.
At the time you approached her?
Yes.
And do you recall what color her hair was in the photo?
I don't.
And after you approached her and showed her the flyer, what did she say?
I immediately, in concern for the child, I said, is the baby with you? And she said no. And I said, okay, you've got to come to the police station with me. She said she had things in her apartment. So myself and Sergeant Schoenfeld went up with her. She actually gave us permission to look through the apartment for the baby. And then she grabbed her belongings and we transported her to the Miami Beach Police Department.
And you didn't find the baby in the apartment?
No.
When she grabbed her belongings, what did she do to grab her belongings?
She just picked them up. She had a backpack, and she had some clothing that she had with her. She may have had a purse with her as well, and she just picked everything up and we transported her.
Did she have to gather any items from drawers or closets or anything?
No, everything was exactly where it was at. She just picked up her stuff and we left.
And what happened after she picked up her stuff and you left?
We placed her in handcuffs and we transported her to the Miami Beach Police Department.
And when you arrived at the Miami Beach Police Department, did you have any conversation with her?
I did.
And what conversation did you have with her?
Initially, it was, I asked her if she was okay, if she needed any medical attention or anything, which she said she didn't. I offered her something to eat, something to drink, and then she began to cry.
And did you talk to her some more after she began to cry?
Yes, I did. She said that she had left Phoenix in her vehicle and that she stopped at New Mexico, Texas, and then she came to Miami Beach. She said that she left Phoenix because her boyfriend was very abusive with her and that she feared for her safety and her baby's safety.
Did she tell you where she had left her vehicle?
She initially told me that she abandoned the vehicle in the city of Miami, which is not the city of Miami Beach. It's a different entity. It often gets confused. But she said she had abandoned the vehicle in Miami and then took a taxi cab into Miami Beach.
And you said she initially told you that. Did she tell you something different in the same interview?
She may have, but I don't recall exactly what she said.
Okay. After she talked about where she had left her vehicle, what did she tell you?
She said that she gave the baby to someone in Texas. At first, she said that she gave the baby to somebody at the hotel that she was staying at. And then she said that she gave the baby to someone in a park where she was at, that she just gave them the baby and walked away. She didn't get any information on them. She didn't know who they were. She didn't know where he was at.
So first she told you she gave the baby to somebody at a hotel. Did she tell you where the hotel was?
No, she did not.
And then she said she gave the baby to somebody at the park?
Correct.
Did she provide you any more information about where the baby was?
No.
Did she have any conversation with you about giving the baby up for adoption other than what you already talked about?
Yes, she did. She said that she attempted to give the baby up to adoption to Tammy, and that it caused a lot of issues between herself, her boyfriend, who's the baby's father, and Tammy.
And did she tell you anything further about Tammy?
No.
Did you have any other conversation with Elizabeth Johnson on that day?
No.
You indicated that at the time that you went into the hotel room with her, she grabbed a backpack and you took her to the police station. When you got to the police station, what happened to the backpack?
Well, it was placed in our office in the custody of Sergeant Schoenfeld while I went and checked on her, and then we had that conversation. We contacted the FBI, and he also came to the police station. I impounded all of the property that was in the book bag as well as the book bag into the property and evidence unit at the Miami Beach Police Department.
And when you say you impounded the property, what does that mean? What did you do with the property specifically?
Well, I searched through it. I basically delineate line by line what was in the book bag. And I wrote down the serial numbers on the property receipt, and I left it in the evidence unit.
And was there any property that was given to Elizabeth Johnson when she was booked into jail?
I believe she took her purse with her, and she had, sorry, the things are coming back to me as I'm speaking to you, but she had cash on her. She had about, I want to say $700 to $800 on cash with her, and she took that with her as well.
And the rest of the property, is that the property you impounded?
That's correct.
And when you impounded it, did you fill out a property sheet?
I did.
And did you list the items that you impounded on the property sheet?
I did.
Now, you talked about the backpack. Did you pull out everything in the backpack and list each item separately on the property sheet?
Other than like miscellaneous clothing that she had in there, as well as some toiletries and things of that nature. I didn't specifically say that she had like 3 eyeliners or so on and so forth. But I did specifically write down the bulkier items, which were the GPS, the camera, the charger, so on and so forth.
And you indicated that an FBI agent arrived. Was that Agent Chavez?
Yes.
And did he interview Elizabeth Johnson?
Yes, he did.
Were you present during that interview?
No, I was not.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
Detective Velasquez, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
What I put next to you is a box that's marked as exhibit number 198. Do you recognize what's in that box?
I do.
Now, you indicated that you had impounded the items that we talked about. Did you at some time provide those to Special Agent Chavez?
I did.
And what did you do to provide those to Special Agent Chavez?
He came to the police station. I'm not 100% sure on the date right now, but that should be on the property receipt. And I gave the custody to him of the belongings.
And when you gave the items to Special Agent Chavez, where did you get them?
From the property and evidence unit where they were impounded.
I want you to go ahead and take a look there in the box and see if you can find the property sheet. And is that the property sheet you filled out?
Yes, it is.
Is that in your own writing?
Yes, it is.
And on that property sheet, did you identify any items by their serial numbers?
I did.
And this morning, when you came in here to court, did you look through that box?
I did.
And did you identify whether or not the items in that box match the serial numbers you put on the property sheet?
Yes, I did.
Would you please tell us what items that you listed there on the property sheet and what the serial numbers are?
I had item number 1, Magellan Roadmate, with a serial number of 0788-000-644-232. Item number 2 was a Magellan car charger, the serial number of 289-365-970-1500. Item number 3 is a red Nikon Coolpix digital camera with a serial number of 3723-2583, contained in a black case. Item number 4 is a Western Country knife with a brown leather case. Item number 5 is a Motorola cell phone with a serial number of H Hotel 456 L Lima E Echo 3 C Charlie P Papa 5. Item number 6 is a Nintendo Wii Super Mario Galaxy video game. Item number 7 is a yellow photo album. Item number 8 is a pink backpack with miscellaneous clothes and toiletries. And item number 9 is a plastic bag with miscellaneous clothing in it.
And Detective, you indicated you filled out that impound sheet and you impounded the items. Did you impound them into property at Miami Beach Police Department?
I did.
And is that the same property you got the items from to give them to Special Agent Chavez?
Yes.
Are those items in the same condition they were in when you provided them to Special Agent Chavez?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I move for the admission of exhibit number 196, which was Detective Bailey's report from the GPS device.
Any objection? No. Exhibit 196 is admitted.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, officer, as they probably told you, I'm the one that dragged you here. I'm sorry.
It's no problem.
But I do like our fine city. I had a chance to take a look, and having been there previously, but remind myself what Miami Beach looks like. You're on a little key off the coast of Miami. that where you're at?
It's a 7-mile stretch,
Yeah, a little 7-mile small island.
if you want to call it a small
or
island.
key,
Okay.
or whatever you want to call it. And primarily resort community.
No, South Beach is primarily a resort community, but the middle and north end of Miami Beach are all residential.
Okay, where this was at, there's some hotels right on the beach, correct?
It's not right on the beach, but it is
Close to the beach.
it's close to the beach, yes.
And it's on what, the west side of the A1A?
Yes,
Okay. And just across the A1A, which is a little highway that kind of runs along the coast, correct?
which road are you referring to?
The A1A. It kind of runs along the coast, up through the middle of the island, and then continues on up the coast of Florida.
Correct.
Okay. And just on the other side of that, to the east, are some of Florida's finest beaches.
I would agree.
Okay. White sand beaches,
Yes, sir.
palm trees,
Yes, sir.
nice ocean breeze that comes in.
If you say so.
Now, this is the area that you went to. And this little hostel is what's a little white building?
It is.
And it's 2 stories in almost like a horseshoe shape, correct?
It is.
And there's a top and a bottom to it.
That is correct.
And you said Elizabeth was staying on the top level?
That is correct.
Now, you found her in that little courtyard, right?
Yes.
Okay. And there's little tropical plants and things that you might find in a courtyard of that type, correct?
I don't recall what the
Palm trees,
what the greenery
banana
was at
trees,
that
all
time.
types of things.
Let's not talk over each other. Let her finish your answer before you start the next question. Make sure he finishes his question. Let's do a question and answer. Thank you.
Continue.
I don't recall what the landscape looked like in 2009. I'm sorry.
Okay. So you went there and you recognized Elizabeth Johnson immediately, correct?
Yes.
And she's a very pretty girl, correct?
If you say so.
Long blonde hair,
She has long blonde hair, yes.
thin,
She's thin.
young.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what was she wearing?
I believe she was wearing like a gray sweater, if I recall correctly, and she might have been wearing either like tights or like really tight jeans.
Okay, and she'd just gone shopping. Judge, you mind if I get a pair of gloves?
You may get
She'd
them.
just gone shopping, correct?
Yes.
We've got some of those items in that box, and I am going to necessarily give them evidence, but I'd like the jury to see them. You said it was one of your fine department stores over there in Miami Beach she went to, correct?
Yes.
Probably Ross or one of those.
Correct.
Now, why were you there? Why was it so important that you find Elizabeth Johnson?
The Tempe Police Department asked for our assistance in locating her.
They did that, indeed. There was also an Amber Alert, was there not?
I don't recall if there was an Amber Alert at the time or not.
Judge, may I approach the witness? There's a missing baby?
I'm sorry?
Was there a missing baby?
Yes.
Gabriel? Let's look. That's what we had. She went shopping. And got these?
Yes.
Okay. Missing baby, went shopping, got these. She got these. These are pretty, right?
If you say so.
Well, I don't think so. But my guess is my wife would think so. She got these. She got a couple of tops, right? This is one of them.
Yes.
This is another one of the tops that she got right here. She got another pair of jeans. Again, I'm going to use a word that, cute. Nice pair of jeans. Would you say?
If you say so.
Okay. She also got this backpack, which as you can see is not the most manly thing that I've ever seen in the world. Pink.
Yes.
some women might consider cute. Maybe not you, but some might, correct?
And I'm going to object to the commentary at this point.
I think commentary and some relevance. Let's keep it to the subject, please.
Okay, pink backpack.
Yes.
Something else in there, a little different. This.
Yes.
Okay, may I approach the witness?
Amen.
Do you recognize this?
Yes.
What is it?
Item number 4 on the property receipt.
What is item number 4 on the property receipt?
A knife.
Okay. Approach the witness, Judge. It's in a sheath, right?
Yes.
This knife? Okay. Judge, it's my understanding that we don't have the proper ways to secure this to enter it into evidence, but what I'd like to ask is that it be provisionally entered into evidence. I believe that Detective Thompson can bring us something where we can secure it.
Any objection?
No.
Okay, it's going to be admitted provisionally. We'll get the necessary items to secure that into evidence.
Thank you, Judge.
And we don't have a number yet.
We don't, Judge, but I was hoping we could just use Detective Velasquez, and then when we get there, we can get it in.
You can utilize it. We'll get a number for it later.
Okay. I'm going to put it on the evidence table. Now, let me move this stuff out of the way. Do you remember when you talked to me on the phone?
Yes.
Okay. And we talked a little bit about Elizabeth and what she said to you. You remember that?
Yes.
Now, the state talked to you about different stories she gave you, correct?
I'm sorry.
She gave you various stories about what happened to Gabriel.
Yes, she did.
One story was that she met some people at a hotel in Texas.
Correct.
Spent some time with them.
No.
And gave them the baby.
Yes.
Okay. The other story is that she met some people at a park.
Correct.
And gave them the baby.
Correct.
Okay. Now, you're aware of the text message she sent, correct?
Yes.
Now, when you talked to her, you told me that she seemed cold. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
She seemed uncaring about Gabriel. Isn't that correct?
I don't think I used that word, but okay.
But it's fair to say she didn't care about Gabriel.
I can't say that she didn't care about her child.
What was your opinion?
Objection, speculation.
Was the question, what was your opinion?
What was your opinion overall?
My opinion was that she seemed very detached when it came to Gabriel.
And you're a mother, correct?
I am.
And that concerned you.
It did.
You couldn't see yourself doing that.
No.
You'd be worried sick if your child was gone.
I would.
You'd do everything in your power to bring your child home.
I would.
Now, she did show some emotion when she talked about the father of Gabriel, correct?
She did.
Very angry about that, correct?
Yes, she was.
Now, let's summarize this real briefly. You arrested a woman who was dressed in tight jeans, little gray top, correct?
Correct.
She had just gone out shopping for what looked to me like more tight pants, correct?
Your Honor, I'm going to object again to the commentary, and I'm also going to object to asked and answered.
Overruled. I don't think it's commentary. She can answer the question.
The jeans, I don't know if they were going to be tight on her or not because I didn't see her wearing them, but yeah, she did buy jeans.
2 pairs of jeans, 2 tops,
Correct.
and her child was missing.
Yes.
No further questions.
Thank you. Redirect.
Just one quick question.
Detective, Mr. Lee asked you about Elizabeth talking about meeting a couple in the hotel in Texas and said she spent some time, and your answer to that was no.
Correct.
Could you explain that answer?
In both instances, when it came to her explanation about Gabriel, she maintained that she just met someone and gave them the baby. She never had an extensive meeting with anyone.
And did she, when she was talking about the people in the hotel and the people in the park, was that different than when she talked about Tammy?
Yes, it was.
No further questions.
Thank you. Before we let Detective Velasquez step down, does the jury have any questions for her? Doesn't look like it. May this witness be excused, Ms. Andrews? Mr. Lee?
Yes, Judge.
You may step down. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the state may call its next witness.
The state calls Detective Thompson.
Are we going to leave the materials wherever they got left? Why don't we move them? They're back over there? Okay. Sometimes it's hard to see what it is. Tough.